Since taking over as general manager in 2018, Brett Veach has been the driving force behind the Chiefs' draft strategy. Over the years, the team's needs have naturally evolved, and Veach has been tasked with adapting to those changes while maintaining the team's competitiveness. To get a clearer picture of his approach, I took a deep dive into the drafts he's overseen, starting from 2018. Specifically, I wanted to see how often he drafts based on immediate team needs versus selecting players as long-term luxury. Does he prioritize certain position groups more than others, or is he purely focused on addressing the team's most pressing needs? What's up, buddies? Welcome back. If you are new here, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We cover all AFC West news here on this channel. So, here's what I found. In the first 3 rounds of the draft, Veach has addressed positions of need about 68% of the time. That's roughly 2/3 of his early round picks being used to fill critical gaps. This approach makes a lot of sense when you think about building a balanced, competitive team. The draft is a great way to plug holes and address glaring weaknesses, and it seems Veach has been intentional about doing just that. That said, one of Veach's consistent strategies has been to enter the draft with as few major needs as possible. He works hard in the offseason to address those critical gaps through trades, free agency, or other moves, ensuring the team doesn't feel overly pressured to reach for certain positions during the draft. We saw this approach again this year, with Veach making a concerted effort to fill the roster's most glaring holes before draft day. Now, as of today, I think the Chiefs still have 4 key position groups that could use some attention to make the team even stronger. For me, the top priority is the defensive interior. I know some might argue that another position group deserves the top spot, but here's my reasoning. Adding a dominant interior defensive lineman who can consistently pressure opposing quarterbacks could take this team to the next level. Pressure from the interior disrupts an offense's rhythm in ways that edge rushers alone can't achieve. It's a need that stands out to me as the most critical right now for the Chiefs, and it's an area where a strong addition could have an immediate and significant impact. Looking back at last year's Super Bowl against the Eagles, one of the biggest differences between the two teams was how dominant Philadelphia's defensive interior was. They had guys up front who could consistently get to the quarterback, and that made a huge impact on the game. The Chiefs, on the other hand, didn't have that same level of interior pressure. That's why I believe the Chiefs are actually closer to having an elite, nearly unstoppable defensive front than they are to building an offensive line that can completely shut down pass rushers. And here's why. On the offensive side, there are some concerns, especially at tackle. At right tackle, Jawaan Taylor is locked into a starting role because of his contract. In year 3 of his deal, he carries a $27 million cap hit, and cutting him isn't a realistic option since it would either cost the team money or, at best, break even, depending on when they made the move. So, for now, Taylor is staying put. On the left side, things are even more uncertain. As of now, it looks like Jaylon Moore is in line to start, though he'll have to compete for that spot. That means the Chiefs are essentially in the same situation they were in last season, still looking for stability at tackle. Meanwhile, on the defensive side, the Chiefs are just one player away from having a truly dominant front. They already have Chris Jones wreaking havoc and George Karlaftis making plays. If they can add one more interior pass rusher to that mix, someone who can consistently collapse the pocket, it completely changes the dynamic of the defense. When you have that kind of disruption up front, it forces offenses into tough decisions. Do they double-team Chris Jones every snap? Do they keep a running back in to chip on Karlaftis? Or do they now have to account for a third disruptive force inside? That kind of pressure creates a ripple effect, forcing quarterbacks into quicker decisions and making life easier for the entire defense. That's why, heading into the draft, my top priority for the Chiefs is adding another impact player to the defensive interior. Now, I know some might argue that offensive tackle should be the biggest concern, and I get that. It's definitely my second biggest need for this team. Looking ahead, the Chiefs are likely going to move on from Jawaan Taylor's contract after next season when it finally becomes financially reasonable to do so. That means they're set to enter the 2026 season without a clear starting right tackle, unless Wanya Morris steps up and claims that role. And on the left side, there's still a need for depth and long-term stability. So, while both positions need attention, I still believe the defensive interior is the bigger immediate priority. After defensive interior, I think tackle stands out as the second most important position grouping for the Chiefs heading into this offseason. Right behind tackle, I'd put edge rusher as the next critical need. The reasoning here is similar to the case for defensive interior. Adding one more effective pass rusher would create a ripple effect, forcing offenses into tough decisions and making life difficult for opposing quarterback. In fact, you could even lump defensive interior and edge rusher together as part of the larger need for pass rushing talent. Whether it's someone on the inside or off the edge, the Chiefs are just one more key piece away from having a dominant, well-rounded pass rush. That kind of addition could make this defense a nightmare to deal with. Now, I'm not sure if they will find that player in this draft, but I'm definitely keeping my fingers crossed that they do. Lastly, the fourth position group I believe the Chiefs need to address is tight end. Travis Kelce has been the cornerstone of this offense for years, but he's getting older. Noah Gray has shown flashes of being a solid backup, but it's unclear if he's ready to take on a starting role in the near future. Then there's Jody Fortson, who didn't see much action last year, so the jury is still out on what he can bring to the table. The reality is that the Chiefs have a lot of uncertainty at tight end beyond Kelsey, and it's a position they'll need to plan for sooner rather than later. From all appearances, this season could very well be Kelsey's farewell tour in 2025. Preparing for life after Kelsey should be on the team's radar. When it comes to Brett Veach's draft tendencies, it's worth remembering that he's addressed positions of need in the first 3 rounds about 2/3 of the time. With that in mind, I wouldn't be surprised at all to see the Chiefs target a defensive interior player and a tackle early in this draft. Or perhaps a mix of 2 players from the 4 key areas I've mentioned: defensive interior, tackle, edge rusher, and tight end. Over the years, Veach has developed some patterns in how he drafts. For instance, the most frequently drafted position under Veach has been the offensive line. He's selected 9 offensive linemen since taking over as GM, with picks scattered across nearly every round: 2 in the second, 2 in the third, 2 in the fifth, 1 in the sixth, and 2 in the seventh. However, while Veach consistently adds depth to the offensive line, it's worth noting that he hasn't shown a strong tendency to draft linemen in the first round. Brett Veach hasn't taken an offensive tackle in the first round yet, but if the right player falls to the Chiefs, I'd bet they'd pull the trigger. In fact, they might even consider trading up to secure that tackle if they see the opportunity. Now, sticking with the offensive side of the ball, let's look at the wide receiver position. Over the years, Veach has drafted 6 wide receivers. He's taken 1 in the first round, 3 in the second, 1 in the fifth, and 1 in the sixth. There's definitely a pattern here. Veach clearly values taking wide receivers early in the draft. That said, I don't see wide receiver as a pressing need for this team right now. It would be more of a luxury pick. Sure, there's been plenty of chatter about the possibility of someone like Luther Burden landing with the Chiefs, and honestly, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't excited by that idea. He's an incredible talent, but realistically, I don't think the Chiefs will prioritize a wide receiver in the first 3 rounds this year. At running back, Veach has drafted 3 players since taking over as GM. Clyde Edwards-Helaire was selected in the first round in 2020, a pick that I'd categorize as a luxury. It wasn't a team need at the time, and to be frank, I think it was a mistake. Unless you're looking at a truly exceptional talent like Bijan Robinson, taking a running back in the first round usually isn't the best move. You can often find great value at that position in the 3rd or 4th round, or even later. That's exactly what the Chiefs have done with their other 2 running back picks. Darwin Thompson was taken in the 6th round in 2019, and Isaiah Pacheco was a 7th round pick in 2022. Pacheco has already proven himself to be a starting caliber running back for the Chiefs, though it seems like he may have taken a small step back recently. So while the Chiefs did take a running back in the first round once, I don't think Veach will make that same move again, at least not unless something truly unexpected happens. Switching gears to the defensive side of the ball, the position the Chiefs have drafted the most is cornerback. Over the years, Veach has selected 9 players at this position, showcasing a clear strategy. The Chiefs made a first-round splash in 2022 with Trent McDuffie, but the rest of the selections include 2 4th-rounders, one being Eljarius Sneed, 2 6th-rounders, and 4 7th-round picks. There's a noticeable trend here. The Chiefs rarely go for early-round cornerbacks. Instead, they focus on finding athletes with great measurables in the later rounds, trusting defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo to mold them into productive players. Spagnuolo seems to prioritize 2 key traits in his secondary players: athleticism and intelligence. If a player possesses both, Spagnuolo believes he can make them fit into his system. And given his track record, it's hard to argue with that approach. There are plenty of talented players out there, guys with good measurables and high football IQ, that end up falling to the later rounds of the draft. This can happen for a variety of reasons. Maybe they played for smaller schools, didn't have eye-popping combine numbers, or didn't put up huge stats in college. Others may have dealt with injuries, either missing time or playing through them, which can hurt their draft stock. Whatever the case, these players often find their way to the Chiefs, and the team has done an excellent job uncovering gems for their secondary in the later rounds. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Chiefs once again use 1 or 2 of their 7th-round picks or other late-round selections to grab cornerbacks or players who can contribute on the outside or in the slot. It's a strategy that has worked well for them, and there's no reason to think they'll change it. What do you think about the Chiefs' draft strategy? Do you believe the team focuses more on positional needs or just sticks to the best player available philosophy? In my opinion, it's a mix. Share your thoughts in the comments section.